Good evening, friends, and welcome back to my YouTube channel, Defining Virtuosity. I'm Odin Rathnam, Professor of Violin at Cleveland State University, and tonight we're continuing our traversal of the Wohlfahrt studies with number 12 out of Book 1. This is an extremely valuable etude on many levels. First of all, we can work on bow direction at the extremes of the bow during changes from up to down. We can work on preparation of new planes, when to be on a new string plane before executing a stroke, and it also has some musical content in terms of its form. It's in the key of E flat major, and it is in 3/8 time. Most of the phrases are between 4 and 8 measures long. And span a 2-octave arpeggio with the bowing combination of one separate 2 slurred. This is a very valuable stroke to practice at the tip, going down up to push out and in, at the frog to practice curling the fingers on the up bow and bending the thumb slightly on the down bow as we do the 2 slurs. But before we do any of those bowing combinations, I'd like to go back to my concept of getting the left hand to function in all of its actions. That means lifts, drops, string crossings, and various extensions and contractions without breaking the rules of adding tension into the shoulder, thumb, or inside of the index finger, or between the knuckles, the second knuckles of the various fingers. And to do that, a simple 6-note slur can be practiced, or if you really want to break things down, chained bowings of individual notes. As I've said before, it's very helpful to connect one note to the next. You can go through the entire etude like that and analyze each finger action, whether it's a lift, a drop, a string crossing, or any other, and monitor whether you're uncomfortable anywhere, in your shoulder, in your thumb, anywhere. You want to be in tune comfortably, not forced or pushing to force a finger in tune, just dropping them very comfortably with extreme accuracy. I would follow that with slurs, and I prefer the 6-note slur for this etude. So we would go through the whole etude this way. And so on and so forth. Once the etude is comfortable that way, we can start practicing the various bowings. For the bowing down up, the composer Wohlfahrt has marked an accent on the down bow. And again, I like practicing both martelets with stops at the end of the martelet before the first note of the 2 slurs, or legato, but always with the same impulse. At the tip of the bow, I want to make sure that I'm really extending and stretching the bicep on the down bow and coming back in on the up bow. So we do our down bows to the tip, and you feel a stretch in the bicep. Really feel just the elbow closing on the release here. Bend the thumb and push out. In. And And even there, if I were teaching myself, I would have said, Odin, what about the last 2 inches of the bow? Let's really go to here. And after doing that way, and making sure that you're hanging in between the sounds, here, hanging, when you get all the way out there, we never want to be like this at the tip, but still supinated at the shoulder joint, not pronated, supinated like this, even if the wrist is pulled down. Then you'll also feel more of a stretch in the bicep. And again, one of the myths and misconceptions about out and in is that at the beginning of the stroke, make sure that you're parallel to the bridge, not already pushed out, but parallel. Really watch that you're parallel before you push out, and that you try to stay parallel as you push out. So you're not trying to actually change the angle of the bow in this stroke. You are feeling out and in, but you're trying to keep the bow completely parallel to the string. It's important. So watching the sounding point is important, and memorizing the etude is also important. That's why we do these preliminary studies for the left hand. So that we know sort of quasi know it from memory. Next we do it smoothly with no break in the sound. And so on and so forth. After practicing those 2 versions, I suggest that we turn our attention to bow changes at the frog. Wohlfahrt number 12 can prepare better chords and better ends of up bows into down bows in much the same way that Kreutzer, I think it's 37, does, the F minor, where we have a forte stroke that comes to the frog, a pianissimo beginning, a growing, in, out, in. This preliminary exercise here of practicing up, lift the bow off, balanced only in the fingers, place it, bend the thumb, lift it off, whenever you end the up bow and you're here, you want your hand to be flat from the second knuckles of your fingertips all the way to the wrist, with the elbow ever so slightly behind that and the hand slightly supinated, not as pronated as you were at the beginning of the pinch. You're more pronated here than more supinated. And you want to bend the thumb on each of the down bows slightly and release your shoulder. Allow your shoulder to drift. Even though we're trying to isolate the elbow as a mechanism, if you lock the shoulder when the elbow is in front of the body, your angle will go out. You'll also be less comfortable. You'll feel some tension in the back of your shoulder right there if you do it wrong. If you do it right, you'll feel that release on the down bow. So to remind you, when we've gone from the preliminary shapes in the Galamian book, in the chapter on the right hand, of the triangle to the square, you see the arm has drifted back slightly. It reaches a stopping point and is neutral, and then it goes back out in order to keep the bow straight. Then it goes in, it's neutral for a little bit, and goes out slightly. So on these strokes, even if we're generating the stroke from the elbow, we can't keep the shoulder locked. It has to be able to freely work on this hinge, right this way, and on this hinge. You know, you can just do some circles with your arm and just remind yourself of what it feels like when it's mobile this way, and realize that the whole time we're playing the violin, it should feel mobile and free the same way. And we're observing the 3 rules of sound production in the right hand, which are that we have a combination of contact of the bow being this, yeah, pivoting into the string, a hinge that works, that's this ability that we're not locked at the wrist joint, and the sense that the elbow is hanging, not lifted up. Everything is about the same height. We might have everything, relatively higher for the G or lower for the E, but within all of those planes, we're hanging. So then in the stroke for the up bows into the downs, if we go back to the master classes I taught at Juilliard, what you will do is you'll feel as though you're drawing the bow upwards with the wrists and fingers, and the bow hair facing you, as though it were in a tube. There's the up bow collé. The hair should still be facing you. On the down bow, you're bending the thumb and letting the elbow and shoulder move freely in one direction. So here's that motion turned sideways of the upward lift here. Turned sideways is here, placed on the new note, bending the thumb. If you do from the G minor fugue, the motion of the preparation of those chords is exactly the same. And when we do that, we have the ability to play much more smoothly. So then we don't offend the Baroque specialists as much as when we draw our down bows the modern way. We're able to do it in a way that pays homage to the notion of not having all of that click and catch when we don't want it. But we're still preparing with catches and releases. We're just using softer consonants. After practicing it with that method, I also suggest practicing it up-down, but at the very point of the bow, using the same bowing that we would use in Scherzo Tarantella. So then you would go in, out, in, out. And smooth. And so on and so forth. I hope that this is helpful for you, and advise you to practice this multiple ways. It's one of the best etudes. I want to also bring up one more point, and that is the idea of the planes that we're on. End every stroke on the new plane through a rounded motion, comfortably on the G string, comfortably on the D string, comfortably on the A string, crossing smoothly and back smoothly, dropping the elbow, always ready for the next note. You can can also practice it once focusing on vibrating every note. That the hand is in a position or finally, we can practice this for separate bows like we would play in the scherzo of the Eroica or other symphonic literature, either doubled or singled notes, or triplets. We can play 3 of one, or 2, or 1. So on and so forth. I hope that this helps you, and just start it slowly. Be very careful of intonation as well. You can choose a low E flat and B flat if you want your open strings to sound Pythagorean, or you can choose a just E flat, but then still raise your G's. I prefer to play a lower E flat but if you're playing with a piano, for example, you want to make sure that the tonic that you're in, whatever the tonic key, lines up with the keys. You don't want your E flats, if you're in the key of E flat major with a piano, to be lower than the keys. So there, it's better if your thirds are slightly sharp and your leading tones are slightly sharp. And your intervals are on the big side. But make sure that you line up really, really well with your tonics and fifths and fourths. And then you can play within that realm for the intonation. Well, that's it for Wohlfahrt number 12, the Allegro. Again, if these videos are helping you, I hope that you will comment, like, and share, and subscribe to my channel. Thanks for watching, and stay tuned for the next etudes.